Zack Snyder is totally living my dream. Helming superhero franchises, blank checks from Netflix to make original IP, and being signed on to work on animated shows. Though, when I do it, I kinda hope it's with less people on the internet laughing at what I make. Twilight of the Gods is Netflix's latest series, created by 3 people, though, let's face it, you've probably only heard the name of one. The guy who didn't come up with the premise, wrote none of it, and directed 2 episodes. J. Olivia, Eric Carasso, you did well on this too. Though, make no mistake, Zack Snyder was definitely involved in making this.
Came the woman. I did not know her.
I barely follow his work and even I could tell. This video is going to have light spoilers. The premise, some of the plot points in the beginning, some character details, complaining about Thor's sex life, stuff like that. If you want to watch it blind, go do so. If you're on the fence, maybe I can sway you. I'm considering making a more in-depth analysis later. And in case it hasn't sunk in yet, this show is very much not for kids in any way. Twilight of the Gods is, more than anything, a love story. A tragic love story. Our protagonists are Sigrid, a half-giant on a quest for bloody revenge against Thor for massacring her family on her wedding day, and her fiancé, Leif, a human king who loves her and will follow her to the ends of the earth for her revenge. For better or for worse. He really hopes it's for better. Sigrid convinced her fiancé to come see her home, only to arrive right before Thor decided to kill everyone while looking for Loki, who they didn't even know was hiding nearby. Sigrid and Leif were the only survivors and Sigrid swore bloody vengeance. Loki saw all of this and thought, I can milk this, giving her advice on a plan to kill a god, obviously for his own purposes. Also, other characters are present. This show is beautiful and the action is intense. We get to see Zack Snyder with all the freedom of animation and the director was clearly all for making the most of it. I mean, what can I say that you can't see on screen with your own eyes? Yeah, Hans Zimmer was a composer. For all the sex, violence and thematic grandiosity of the show, it lives and dies on this doomed romance that started off so well before being drowned in tragedy. Our leads do love each other, but are kept apart by their many problems. Sigrid is throwing herself at this quest, fully prepared to die trying or even die succeeding. But while she's happy that her lover is here supporting her, she doesn't want him to die. On top of that, she's willingly making herself a pawn of the gods and working with Loki, who everyone knows clearly has his own agenda. Leif has much less going on in comparison. He was a Viking warlord who did horrendous things in his past, but now wants to be a man of peace, which doesn't gel well with the plan to go to war with Asgard. He also would like the woman he loves to survive trying to kill the god of storms, which is frankly asking too much because I don't think there's a single character in this show who doesn't consider this a suicide mission. And you know what? I think the relationship is actually great. They make a really sweet battle couple who literally met while killing people. Sigrid never felt at home with her family, despite how much they loved each other, but Leif goes out of his way to make her know he cares for her. He doesn't even care that she doesn't seem to be able to have kids and literally goes to war with the gods for her. Meanwhile, Leif is the only thing Sigrid cares about not destroying in her quest. After the 2 of them, the best part of the show is, well, Loki. Though I won't lie, I did find myself wondering if anyone on the writing team saw Overly Sarcastic Productions' video on the god. I won't go too much into his character because that would involve more spoilers than I think this video needs, but he does, in fact, have deeper and more malicious, yet merciful motives than he presents. I'm not even entirely sure if he counts as an antagonist or a protagonist, which is a wild thing for me to be confused by considering the last thing he does in the season. Between the 3 of them, the art, and how hard they go in the fight scenes, the show is definitely worth checking out. Also, there are other characters. Okay, as you might be able to tell from my tone and my words, my praise is a lot more limited here. There's a weird vibe to the extended main cast that I can't quite put my finger on. It's not that they aren't interesting or entertaining characters, they are, but they kind of feel thrown on in a way that limits my perception of their importance to the narrative. Loki tells Sigrid to gather people, and so she recruits her friends in a sequence that really feels rushed. I don't know, it's kinda weird that she just goes home, picks up 2 people we've already met but didn't get much of an impression on, a witch and a wolfman no one has met before, and a dwarf they didn't even expect that literally just goes, oh by the way, I'm totally coming too. There is a level of not really learning much about the characters, and I can't tell if it's due to a lack of focus or a lack of natural exposition, because unless your name is Hervor, it feels like we only learn anything about you during the designated exposition moments. Take Egil. I don't think the fact we don't learn about the details of his relationship with Leif until like halfway through the series is a good thing. It's actually kind of baffling it never came up before, and that they have like only one conversation after that revelation. And I'm going to be honest, episode 6 felt really bad about this, because now in my mind I just think of it as the exposition episode, because it felt like an inorganic way to try and add depth to all the characters before the final battle. The episode is named Now Hereof. It's literally named for the narrative devices the characters use when they begin telling their stories, which are usually their own backstories. Like, Eagle's story should completely change the tone of an earlier scene where basically the same thing happened again, yet between the abrupt reaction that led to us being told the story, the way he acted during the prior scene in question, and the fact that, at best, the only thing it changes is giving us a vague backstory for his magic that no one really talks about, it feels shockingly irrelevant. It's like an unfortunate thing that makes me wonder if the story just didn't have room to properly explore the characters over its 8 episodes while also going as deep into Norse mythology as it wanted. I like Hervor, and I like her conflict, but I straight up feel like the writers went out of their way to ignore the obvious payoff for her character and dropped the biggest bombshell about her arc and concluded it without her even being present. I really want to talk about this because it really bothered me, so here's your spoiler warning. Skip to this point to avoid spoilers. Do not watch what I'm about to say unless you've finished the show. Hervor's dilemma is the fact that she outlived her sons who all died on the battlefield. She wants to die the same way to join them in Valhalla, and when the armies of Valhalla drop from the sky to help defend Asgard against the invasion, they don't even do the obvious thing of having her see what her sons have become. Instead, she dies protecting Sigrid from Thor. And that's when the cursed god-killing weapons they've been using finally have some backlash, because the curse keeps her from going to Valhalla, which Hela tells Sigrid is for the best, because Valhalla is just a place where Odin recruits souls to bolster his army, and it isn't really a paradise. According to Hela, going to hell is good for you in Norse mythology. All of this is revealed while Hervor is dead and unable to react. It's like she was written out of her own conclusion. It's almost the worst example of this I've ever seen. And the baffling thing is Loki then kills Sigrid like 5 minutes later and she goes to Valhalla. Now, I'm not saying they can't explain this away in season 2. I can think of a few reasons why this would happen myself. It's just a baffling way to go about the death of what's supposed to be a supporting main character, and I've slowly lost the ability to have such hope for later seasons being able to fix things. Though admittedly, as far as the show is concerned, I don't think death is really something that's going to keep you from continuing to be a character. Somehow, Andvari's sudden conclusion actually felt better executed than Hervor's death. Then there are the gods, who are as mysterious as they are petty. Thor plays the role of the wrathful, arrogant villain, and he plays it well. He's also pretty intimidating and establishes himself as a threat so thoroughly, at some points I find myself baffled when people are surprised when he kills his opponents in a few seconds. None of you can hang without the appropriate plot armor. Though, I must admit, the attempts to give his character depth felt much less successful than everyone else in the series. Him literally sleeping with the personification of defeat was mildly interesting, but it just didn't hit. Speaking of Thor's sex life, I understand that intimacy is a big part of the story, and I even like some of the things they do with it, even if I feel like, yeah, you could totally cut away from these sex scenes far earlier than you actually do. But there is a point where I think they're just doing things because they can get away with it. Did we really need to see Thor's sex scene with Jormungandr 3 separate times? I'm pretty sure that's not a part of the original myth. I actually liked Jormungandr shapeshifting into human form and her designs were great. But looking back, it just feels like an excuse for more sex scenes. Did they have a quota they needed to meet? Because as far as I can tell, it only happened because prophecy, aka the script, said she had to do it. And honestly, I think if they weren't allowed to have such explicit sex scenes, they wouldn't have done it. Odin, on the other hand, has big final boss energy, and I think his doomed battle against Fate will make him a far more engaging villain in season 2. And Netflix seems to like Snyder enough that they're gonna give him one. If it hasn't already been made. I just hope this doesn't turn into a situation where after season 3 people start talking about how this show is terrible because of festering flaws, and that they don't release another version of the season with extra scenes and more blood and sex called the Snyder Cut. What did you think of the show and this video? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below, and while you're at it, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Thank you and good day.